my gosh, so complicated.
Is that the entire first 6 episodes?
Can I say something? How were the 6 episodes so boring, and then when we sit down and talk about them, so complicated?
Yeah.
Hi.
Welcome to Membriash.
Welcome. I'm Ashley.
I'm Mitch.
We are having problems with Netflix
We're
copyright
having
issues.
so many problems.
The short version is that the way we normally interact with Love is Blind content by posting reactions.
It's no longer good enough.
No longer good enough for Netflix, and they are blocking all of our videos. In an effort to move forward, be able to still chat about stuff, and also while we're figuring out how to deal with it logistically on our end, we decided that this episode will be a recap instead of a reaction. We're going to talk about the entire bulk of episodes
1 through 6.
They gave us, right? 1 through 6. This is different, but I think that we hope that you still enjoy it because we are still hanging out together just in a little bit of a different way. And we can still talk about the show just a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's going to be less like immediate reaction, more thoughtful potentially.
Which I don't know if that scares me, actually, because then
yeah,
I'm like...
then we have more ownership over what we say.
Now,
right?
if people are like, man, you missed that, and I can be like, well, I was just reacting. But now, if people are like, man, you missed that, I'm going to be like, there's no excuse now.
Well, before we do anything else, though, I actually wanted to say thank you so much for everybody who said something nice recently. You said something the other day where you said that the people that watch our channel probably know us better than any friends we've had in like almost our entire adult lives. So even though like we don't know a lot of you very well, maybe not as well as you know us, like it still feels like the care of friends when people have been saying so many kind things. So it's just little messages, little DMs, like messages on the channel, like, hey, I miss you guys, take care of yourself. Just like emotionally sensitive and kind in ways that we haven't always felt from a lot of our even in-person community. So it just felt really sweet, very comforting, very amazing to know that we have support of like so many people that we didn't know before starting our channel. So it honestly just like it's really gotten us in the feels lately. So I want to appreciate y'all. Like thank you for being here for us.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. Yeah. You choked me up.
Oh.
I'm choked up.
Well, it's not me, it's them. But so we do appreciate you, and it makes it easier to get back and makes us excited to get back doing the channel, even though we've had to take a little bit of a break. Let's get into the show. Should we go off of roughly the order of proposals?
Yeah,
because I remember Joey and Monica having a proposal. They were the first. Every time I hear Joey talk, I'm like, Joey, like I knew Joey, not him specifically, but like, oh yeah. I feel when people say I don't hear a stereotypical Midwest accent, I don't understand it. Joey.
I have a lot of personality, and someone that matches me on that is like sometimes a little more difficult to find as well.
Yeah. Joey is the Midwest accent. Yeah, absolutely. Joey sounds so much like so many people we grew up with. Their meeting was pretty cute.
Yeah, that was a pretty sweet meeting.
And also like very strange.
Well, because they were just... They were getting low. They're getting low. Yeah. Stop it! I felt like at a certain point they were just screaming in each other's face. I joked that it was the sure STEM couple that's going to make it to the end. Maybe they won't get married, but they're going to be like the ones that they're being paraded around. I guess if they're not a success story, then Vanessa and Nick won't care. But...
Well, there are multiple ways to be a success story too, though. So even if they don't get married, if they like treat each other really well,
they don't have dirt,
and they agree that they were in love and all this stuff.
Yeah, I guess love is blind.
Right? Yeah. As long as they're willing to say that at the reunion, they're good to go.
So far, I do believe love is blind.
You want to talk about Dave next?
Dave is a complicated one for me.
And so Dave had 2 relationships, right? Yeah. So Dave was playing everybody.
Yeah, he's playing the field.
Dave had... from what we saw, Dave primarily had Molly and then Lauren. Dave gave both of us the ick from like minute 1.
There were some early things that he just like, even after seeing everything, there's still some things that really pissed me off about him.
He was negging people from the very beginning. And if you don't know what negging is, it's basically it comes off the word negative, right? Yeah. So yeah, you're putting somebody else down. And then I think the hope is, or the thought is, that then by putting that person down, they'll be more attracted to you.
It's like mild breakdowns. It's almost like that, like you talked about some people in the show having the pickup artist vibe.
Yes.
And that's kind of part of that.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, if you treat women like crap, they'll like you, is basically the perspective.
Yeah.
And like, intentional or not, it seemed to, we had multiple instances of him calling people unattractive, too old,
right.
Stuff like that, which for me is red flags, major red flags.
I know some people have described it as like, he's pretty sarcastic. And I agree.
But who's the target of your sarcasm?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're meeting someone for the first time, being sarcastic is one thing, but maybe make it a self-deprecating sarcasm and not an attack on the other person.
Or global sarcasm and not a direct attack on your dating partner.
Right. Like that didn't make sense to me at all, and it really put me off. And then the other problem with Dave is that every single date that he goes on, every date this man goes on in the pods, he's saying the same crap to everyone he's with, and everyone thinks they're his number one. I have a big problem with watching the dates and literally feeling like the women are interchangeable. Like if you're
because I think for him they are.
And if you're on a show like this, it shouldn't be like that, right? Like technically you're trying to find the person that you connect with the most. Like the conversations should be different. The things you say to those people should be different because your relationships should be different.
Yeah.
And with Dave, it was the same lines. And then it ends up.
And then when he tells people they're his number one, he cuts them and says, "No, you're not my number one."
Yes.
Which is exactly what happened to Molly.
Honestly, like you were my number one after the first day, especially after right now, like today.
And it's sad because like Molly's personality type is a little tough for me to handle. Like she's very like outgoing, very vocal about who she was connecting with. So for a lot of the other women, they knew that like Dave was her number one because she was like telling people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like...
No, but she was a nice person. She seemed like a good energy match for Dave.
Agree.
So like as far as like who would have maybe
like,
made the best couple, I feel like that would have been a better couple for him.
But I feel like what he ended up doing like to her, and again, I don't know that this was like, I don't know that this was intentional, but I think what he ended up doing to her is because she's a little bit more abrasive, because she was a little bit more like confident coming out of the pods, then it ended up with like other women questioning whether she was lying or not, and whether she was being delusional about the extent to her relationship. Because somebody
even mentioned, are you Delulu or am I Delulu? Who's Delulu? Somebody said that. Was Lauren like made that reference? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the reality is neither of them were Delulu.
It's
Dave was pitting them against each other.
Dave is Delulu.
Right.
I had so many reservations about Dave, honestly. And he explicitly said things that then he later said to other people he didn't say. And it's on tape. Other people have mentioned it. He straight up said, "You're my number one."
To Molly.
And then he straight up denied it to Lauren and the camera and stuff. So
and it made Molly look like she was lying.
Also, I heard a couple of people say, and we're not digging too much on the internet, so we're trying to come up with our own opinions, but I did hear some people say, and I am also in the camp that it is a little weird how emotional he was around his sister. Part of it is not potentially weird because they both lost their mother. Yeah. And in a really traumatic way. So they were potentially really close.
Yeah.
But then also, when he was talking about it on camera, I had to look it up because I was like, what's wrong with his sister? It's just that she would be hard to please.
Or did she not want him coming on the show, maybe?
She's like, you're not going to find your person. Yeah. But then he was like really emotional about it. But then again, maybe like some people might look at that and say manipulation. I often am easily going to go I'm giving Dave a manipulation pass in a lot of this because an intentional manipulation pass. Yeah. Because I feel like so much of Dave comes off to me as like accidentally manipulative. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving him too much of a pass, but what do you think? Are you disagreeing with that? You think like the crying, some people didn't like his extreme emotional portrayals and stuff?
I'm just like going through it. Just wanted to let you know that. Like this is really hard right now for me.
I think it's tough for me because the way that he expressed that emotion I think was pretty inappropriate to her. Like the way that she asked him, like Lauren came into that conversation asking him specific questions because she had not realized based on the way he was talking to her that he was talking to someone else in the same way. He'd given her no indication to that. And then he fully broke down at the end of that conversation.
Made it about himself.
Made it all about himself, right?
I get that, but I'm saying that wasn't on purpose. That's not good.
It's just tough because like how many passes at a certain point, like I get a little angry because
I'm not giving him passes.
Well, no, but you are in a way, and I'm like I'm not trying to fight.
I'm trying to say intentionality versus not. That's all.
Yes, and I agree with that, but then at the the same time, it hits a point, and I feel like I reached that point with Dave, where I'm like, there have been so many things that even if it's not intentional, I just like work on your bullshit.
The intentionality, back to what you're saying, doesn't even matter at a certain point because he's got so much bullshit wrapped up into the way he's treating other women.
Yeah.
Intentional or not, he's hurting them.
It was hard too with Molly. I like watching her. She had no idea, right?
She blindsided, confused. I thought I was your number one. You're dumping me now? Like,
and
what the hell, dude?
all of that I think was reasonable based on her interactions with him.
Molly's reactions were reasonable, and then her like getting like breaking down when talking to Lauren sucked to see.
It sucked.
Because she was just like, hey, I wasn't trying to beef with you. She just got through an emotional breakup. And she was like, I wasn't trying to beef with you. There's obviously weird energy between us. I literally didn't know it was you. And I was just sharing because that's me, you know. Yeah. And I felt really bad for Molly at the end.
I felt bad for her too. I'm getting a little choked up thinking about her because she was so sweet when she's sitting with Lauren. And she's like, I told him the whole time I want him to find his person. And if like that's you, then like I'm happy for you guys. And it was so sweet.
He wants to pursue things with you, which I think is great. So I'm like, I love, like, Lauren's great.
Also,
what?
One more thing about Dave and his relationships with all of the women that we saw on camera. The people that he was most attracted to were mothering him because Molly was like hand holding him through expressing his emotions. And so to the point that when he left, he was like, wow, wasn't that impacted. And she left and then sobbed. But because she was so busy managing his emotions and his like just expressing that they weren't going to be together, she handled all of that for him.
Yeah.
And then when you see the way he goes with Lauren too, it's the same kind of behavior. Yeah. And the way he presents is oftentimes childlike in his expression of emotions.
I agree with that. And then I would say too, I feel like the childlikeness comes out in like a selfishness or like that not realizing that you're hurting other people. Yeah. Not realizing that too, that like, even if Molly didn't start sobbing with him in that room, it doesn't mean he doesn't know when she leaves how upset she is. And he just assumes like, well, she seemed fine.
There's literally like an object permanence thing. Like when infants don't have object permanence, so like peekaboo is so much fun.
Yeah.
That's the way he vibes, is a lack of object permanence, a lack of a reflection on other people's like humanity, autonomy, whole world experience.
Okay.
I think we can move off that. So then we also have, let's go with Sarah and Ben real quick. They may have been next in the...
Where's Sarah and Ben?
Ben is the guy that nobody likes in Minneapolis, apparently, in the dating world scene. And Sarah is the woman who picked him, even though she knew that their politics probably don't align, but she probably got deceived by Ben because he's a weasel. So I've got some feelings right there that I think were summated.
I'm now remembering who both of them are. Sarah seems like a very sweet and kind person.
Yeah.
Sarah seems like a very politically informed person, especially given that this was filming in Minneapolis. She was the only person to talk about
George Floyd died.
Right? She's the only person to talk about George Floyd that we saw, right? So only footage on that, only person to mention Black Lives Matter, only person to broach like LGBTQ
My
issues.
Sister is gay, and if you don't support her, I'm not going to have you in my life.
Right.
Is the way she vibed with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, Ben did several things that indicate to me that he is just there to get famous. One of them was downplaying his religion, which was weird. And I feel like you really rarely see this. But he while speaking about it, made it seem like, and was talking about how he doesn't really like the word religion. It's faith for him. He doesn't really believe in any of the things except that there's like kind of one, you know, like
unifying God, perhaps.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But other than that, like he is, you know, it's not not religious, right? He doesn't like that.
I believe that, you know, there's the one true God that loves us. And that's pretty much it.
Then he tells her he goes to church every week.
And he expects his partner to go with him.
Would hope.
Yeah.
Okay, would hope that his partner would go with him, which to me in my mind was like, it's a hope now, it's an expectation later.
Yes.
Like,
that's a foot in the door.
Right.
That's the salesman tactic.
Totally.
Yep.
And maybe I'm wrong. But that is what that felt like to me. So that was a huge red flag.
I don't trust Ben.
And it made it feel like he was just trying. He's like, well, my connection is with this person, and this is who I will leave with no matter what I have to say to her.
I just thought
to leave. What?
Ben Folds lies.
Okay.
It's an OG. It's an old school.
Nobody knows who Ben...
People know who Ben Folds 5 is. We talk to millennials.
People in our age group
Most
know
of the people that watch us are millennials.
That is such a neat...
All right.
Okay.
If you like my Ben Folds lies joke, Let me know down below.
Then the second thing that bothers me about Ben is that when Sarah...
Told lies. What am I saying over here?
Yeah, well, you gotta
I
work
just
it out.
fucked
You
up
gotta
my
work
own
it out.
joke.
You gotta...
Ben told lies.
Okay, that is a lot better.
All right.
I'll give you that.
Ben told lies.
Okay, my other problem with Ben is that when Sarah was talking about her gay sister, who she loves clearly, and who she is like, listen, I was raised conservative, but like she's basically like, that's not who I am anymore. You don't
That is
support
not my life.
the LGBTQ community, like, fuck off, is her vibes. And she's very clear up front before he responds.
Yeah.
She's very clear that like that's her perspective.
Which gives him a opportunity to understand the parameters and weasel around them.
Right. And the parameter is, you better be okay with this, otherwise I'm not getting engaged to you. And then Ben's response to me, and I don't know, maybe I'm reading this wrong.
Maybe we're wrong.
But he avoided saying the word gay
Or LGBTQ or queer.
Or
lesbian,
he said
anything.
that community.
That community.
No discomfort around that community at all.
I don't know.
I have, some of my closest friends are that way.
It just gives me a little homophobic vibes.
You start to get into areas where it doesn't mean that the person is homophobic, but he didn't feel comfortable talking about it. If you don't feel comfortable saying the word gay, then I don't think the relationship between him and someone who has like a very close gay sister, I don't feel like that's gonna work out.
I hear about people on dating apps dating white men that will say that they're apolitical and that it doesn't impact them, which is shit he said because he has the privilege for it to not impact him.
I forgot about him saying that.
Yeah, dude, he has so many red.
Like, I didn't vote in the last election. Like, as long as I don't know, it's not gonna, do much. So,
like, I greatly dislike everything Ben showed us.
It pissed me off.
And getting blood boiling over here.
When Sarah brought up that she asked him point blank, what do you think of Black Lives Matter? Which I actually thought, I really liked her, and I felt like she handled all these conversations really well.
She was bold about that. She's like, this is important in my life.
Yeah.
Activism is important because I was here in this city where this shit went off, and it changed me as a person.
His response to that, half of it I thought was fine. His response to the George Floyd conversation and the Black Lives Matter conversation was him saying, I am not very educated about this, which that part I thought... a red flag.
Maybe you live under a rock.
But,
yeah, okay.
Okay. But
being
then
in Minneapolis,
he's like, I don't really get into I'm not really affected.
He said, if I don't pay attention, it doesn't impact me.
Like, I'm not one way or another. I just kind of keep out of it.
Which just feels like lies, first off, and second off, if that's the privilege you want to live in, I don't know, fuck yourself.
And
honestly.
It does. The crazy thing to me, it does impact him.
Yeah.
It's just he has the ability not to think or talk about it because the way that it impacts him is positively and the way it impacts other people is negatively.
Yeah.
And he is choosing not to care or have empathy for the people that are being negative.
Which is a violent choice in my book.
The other thing I want to mention about Ben, because I don't want to get as angry as like I feel myself
as I am.
angry. Yeah, I just can't. I can't do it. The other thing about Ben, and again, like I feel if this isn't true, I feel bad. Okay, but my perspective watching the show was that he was acting, and I don't often feel that way about the people on the show. I often feel like even if they go on for fame, these people aren't like actors. When Ben and Sarah met each other, when they're like they're meeting, they're like walk down the
I probably
aisle.
checked a lot of it out because I don't like Ben.
I don't know. I felt like I was watching like a soap opera actor. I didn't feel like I was watching
actor. You felt like you were watching a bad actor.
Like I felt like I was watching. He grabbed her face at one point and like kissed her.
You're beautiful, my love. Sorry.
Bringing me out. Like, I love you, but that's horrible.
Well, I was just trying to give you the whole
in my mind,
Ben experience.
Okay, well, I don't want the Ben experience. I don't want the Ben experience.
Okay. Just to reiterate.
He like grabbed her face and he looked at her and he's like, he said something to the like, you're just so beautiful or something, and then like kissed her.
You are.
I felt off-put by it.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, like, the situations are tough that they get put in. It's weird, the cameras being there. Of course, it affects, like, who the people show up as and whatever. But I really felt, I feel deep in my core that Ben was not there for the right reasons.
Let's do Devon and Virginia because they actually made it.
Yeah, there was the triangle of Devon,
Britney, and Virginia.
Yeah. And it turns out also that there was a fourth person, Mo, who they never showed us.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So Devon was not her only option.
Yeah. Oh, because
throughout.
Britney ended up getting with Mo.
Yeah, but the narrative that we see on the show is that it's Devon picking between Britney and Virginia. Britney and Devon are seeming like they're
almost like a tighter match, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They both love and play basketball. They both see that being a really big part of their life. Like that.
They just click on personality. Like
Right.
they really like they like each other a lot.
Yep. They seem to just have a lot of connection points. I truly couldn't tell watching them whether it seemed like more of a friend connection though. At some point they're talking about big stuff.
Devon shares his history with injury and how it totally changed his life.
And abuse of pain medication.
Oh, was that part of it? I must have missed that part. Yeah, okay.
He talks about abusing ibuprofen.
Oh.
I don't want to put anything on him, like he has a job to go back to and all of that stuff. So it sounds a lot to me like maybe it was more than ibuprofen. As some people online I've seen be kind of rude about the fact that he spoke about this as an ibuprofen situation when
it
feels like it probably wasn't.
Okay.
But I actually don't think that's problematic at all. I think he was able to talk about the subject he needed to talk about without saying, like, I was addicted to OxyContin or I was addicted to, like, Percocets. Or, like, why? Why do we need it to be... I don't know that he needs to out, like...
He's on camera,
anything
too.
like that.
And there's part of this stuff is, like, you're in these, like, really tough situations, and you saw at least one person on the show that I feel like didn't open up at all about something specifically because they're probably on a TV show.
Yeah.
And I forgot who it was, but somebody was like, oh, it doesn't feel like you're responding at all.
I think it was Virginia.
Was it Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was Virginia. Yeah. Virginia didn't open up about certain things, whatever that is. And I honestly respect, because she probably wants to say it in front of the camera.
Right.
So whatever. He's being a little careful about the way he's speaking. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
And whatever he says in terms of like what medication it was, like I'm not sure why any of that matters, and it didn't change my perspective or alter my perspective of Devon at all.
I've still got compassion for that, for sure.
Right. What did though is when Britney then opens up, because she's like, okay, you've opened up to me about something really big, and
this is a common
personal.
thing too. You share something huge, it often puts pressure on other people, intentional or not, to share something big. They feel like, well, you shared something, I'm going to share something.
Right. And it kind of creates a safe space, because the way that Britney responded to him was very compassionate and very kind and very like, we all go through things in our life. I mean, she was great. Like her response to him was wonderful. So then Britney shares that I don't know how to appropriately talk about this, because I don't want
She didn't label things. So
she didn't label it, right? So it's hard for me to label it.
She even talked about the need for labels in our society.
Right.
So we just speak in her terms.
Right. So she's had encounters with women. It sounds like...
Not willing to define them as full relationships. Maybe relationships, but not relationships she'd be willing to marry.
It doesn't sound like...
It's a little complicated. More like hookups, maybe.
Yeah, the way she described it, it sounded more like even like situationships.
Yeah, situationships.
Where she wasn't maybe willing to define things, or they didn't want to define things. She shared that she feels most comfortable moving forward with a lifestyle where she would be married to a man, and she doesn't ever see herself married to a woman. But the way that she talked when Devon asked follow-up questions very much indicated that she is comfortable, that she is attracted to who she is with, and she was not willing to walk back. Like, he pressed her a few times on like, well, does that mean you're still attracted to women? And while the answer wasn't yes, it wasn't no. It was, I'm attracted to who I'm with at the time that I'm with them.
She's like, I don't have wandering eyes. She's like, if I'm with you, I'm with you. Yeah, monogamy isn't a problem. Never has been a problem. I haven't cheated.
Right.
I've been with women. It's just something I need you to know, because I don't want you to find out that I've been with women and it's suddenly a problem when we're married.
Yes.
Because you're talking about like getting close to the proposal. She's like, if you're going to propose to me, you got to know this is a part of who I am.
Right. I'm glad that Britney talked about it.
Yeah, totally.
I'm glad she talked about it.
I think it's important to talk about before getting engaged. Absolutely.
Totally.
You got to know that about somebody.
And she basically said it in a way where she's like, I've held a lot of shame around this, and I don't want to hold that anymore.
And I don't want to feel shame about who I am.
But yeah, the Devon reaction, he didn't take it well.
He wasn't like mean, right? But I forgot exactly what he said. Was he just like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, well, I got to think about that.
And where she validated him so much, and him talking about his like painkiller problems,
and
he
his just
did
pain
not
in general,
validate her in really any way.
There was an immediate, it went from like, this is like, oh wow, this is sharing, it's beautiful, it's emotional, and then I was like,
well,
I do appreciate you for being able to be transparent and speak those things to me.
Yes.
Weird.
He seemed deeply uncomfortable.
And the whole vibe shifted, and
Whole
she
vibe.
didn't seem apologetic, but I could tell very quickly that she was like, okay, like, it felt wounding
Yeah.
from what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And I felt hurt on her behalf, honestly.
Me too. Yeah.
Because you go from, like, so connected and united
Right.
to, like, I basically am not comfortable anymore
Right.
in this relationship, is basically the way Devon was feeling or expressing, and it hurt to watch, honestly.
It did, especially after you have someone. I mean, she admitted that she has a lot of shame and a lot of, like,
yeah, exactly.
and then the
That
way that he
sucked.
responded was hard.
It's a lot for me to process because I think it's just because I've never, like, been with someone that has been with, like, the same sex.
I mean, Virginia was always seemingly a close second. He shared the same exact story again, which editing-wise was fantastic to watch him tell the same story twice.
Do you know what's weird? Okay, do you know what's weird about that, though? Why did they do that? Because we already saw the story. I don't know if they were trying to portray him
Filler.
as, like it didn't feel
rehearsed.
like they were trying to portray it as rehearsed.
And it wasn't totally rehearsed.
And
It
also,
was
like,
similar but different in the way he told it.
you know, like, I have Crohn's disease. I would have to tell a partner about
And if you're
that.
dating multiple people at once, you'd
I
have to
would-
tell multiple people at once if they made it to the
Right.
end.
And I would probably lay
Yeah.
awake at night thinking about how I was going to best communicate that to people. So it probably, if I was telling it to multiple people,
might feel
would
rehearsed.
come off similarly because I'd been like, okay, be careful. Like, the way you want to describe this, make sure you communicate this effectively.
Did you
So-
see anybody online saying that it felt rehearsed or anything? Or not really? You just a feeling that you felt like they were trying to portray in the editing,
I don't
potentially?
know. I couldn't tell if they
Okay.
just kept it in for, like, extra
These episodes
footage.
are long, dude. They're like
or-
hour to 10 minutes each, and we had
Right.
6 of them in the pods. It was
just
kind
felt
of
weird.
fucked.
Like, why would they include it? Was my thought, because they
We
could
didn't
have.
need the whole. They could have like
No.
showed a couple of bits of it, like.
And it was the whole
you know,
damn thing all over again.
the
And I
whole
was like,
damn
we just
thing.
saw this,
Which,
you know?
yeah, I get for Virginia, maybe that's big, but for us, it's like, dude, I've been there.
Right.
Like,
I just saw you tell this to somebody else. So,
From a
like,
viewer standpoint,
I'm
it was
less
just-
affected
yeah,
now, and
right.
it just feels weird watching it again. But I don't feel like that was a weird on him. I feel like that was a weird
Yeah.
on Netflix.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
doing
I
that.
don't blame him for that.
But yeah, he and Virginia, I think, are a good match. I can't tell. Virginia doesn't say much, you know?
Yeah.
She's very.
You said that she
very
seems
quiet.
tired.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it's just like her vibe. Like maybe it's just a really chill, low-key vibe. I don't know what that's like. But
I don't live that lifestyle.
I don't live that lifestyle. I can be barely awake and I'm thrashing, you know? I'm just like making noises, and she seems really nice though.
She does seem really nice, and they seem to have a good connection, and she seems really into him, which is good. And then Devon and Britney sit down and basically break up. I think
And Britney
and she instigates
broaches it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was like, you could tell he's gonna break up with her at that point. Just even at the end of that
He's gonna
conversation.
try and, like, weasel out for sure.
Yeah, but be like, you know, like you're a really great person. Well, that's basically what ends up happening anyway. But she brings it
She
up.
instigates
She breaks up
it.
with him
Yeah.
because he's not her only choice.
And she goes in,
Netflix.
and I thought it was pretty great that she was like, hey, like, I expected a different reaction than what I received. It made me feel not good, and
She articulated it super well.
I don't think this is what I want for a partnership then.
And he
Beautiful.
he wasn't shitty about that either.
No.
He was like, I accept that.
Yes.
And you seem like a really great person, though. Our connection's
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I think she even mentioned, she's like, Virginia's great.
Yeah,
You're
she
gonna
did.
love her.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we're all still friends. Like, I've got no I've got no qualms
Yeah.
about any of this.
It was a beautiful breakup.
It was honestly amazing. And then after they broke up really amicably, and I thought really well.
Yeah.
I if y'all saw something, tell us. But it went good to me.
Yeah.
And then he went into that. He told Virginia, and he told Virginia pretty much how it went. It wasn't like, no, I broke up with her. It was like, well, she was basically feeling the same way. So it was like, honestly, like, took some of the pressure off, and it worked out well. He didn't have to go in there and boast. He all but said she started breaking up with me first.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
so it
I
felt
thought that all went
honest,
great.
reflective. It went okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
I
I
thought.
thought it went really good. And then he and Virginia meet each other, which is mostly just him complimenting her and then her very demurely saying thank you over and over again, which was
And she does this thing where she like hangs her head. And she's like, "Thank you," and
You're so beautiful.
Thank you.
I love the smile.
Thank you.
You smell good.
Thank you.
You are absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
she's very like, I don't know. She gives like almost like meek, but then
Yes.
like I don't think she probably is. That's where I'm like, she seems tired, like because there's some of that
I don't
energy,
know.
some of the physical displays and stuff. But then, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to read Virginia at all.
I'm
honestly.
interested to see more of them.
Like, who is she?
I don't feel that we got enough footage of, like, Devon, Brittany, Virginia in comparison to a lot of the other people that they focused on in the season for me to know who either of them are enough. And we got more of Devon because he was in the love triangle, but Virginia really was not featured enough for me to, like, she seems nice. I'm hopeful for their relationship. I have no idea. I don't know how it's going to go because I don't know her. And I don't feel like we were given enough, despite how long and boring these episodes were.
Yeah.
I feel like they gave us so little of her that it's confusing to me,
we would like to
honestly.
address that we have asked for longer pod time and we take that back. So if Netflix is listening to us, we are not providing good business decisions. We're actually just saying shit. Fuck you, Netflix.
I think they just overshot it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think...
Or
I wanted more.
Theory online is that there's so little outside of the pods that they filled half the season with pod. We'll make it work. Don't worry.
Who else do we have? Well, no, we have 2 more situations that we've got
the
about.
4 square that all just implode.
Yeah.
And then we've got Taylor and Daniel.
I actually think maybe we talk about Taylor and Daniel first and then do the 4 square.
Okay, let's do the people that actually made it through.
Yeah.
Taylor and Daniel next.
Taylor and Daniel. Daniel, I thought, was Alex for a good deal of this
I
show.
can't tell these men apart. Yeah.
Like, I'm not joking when I tell you
I couldn't remember he
thought
existed.
Alex had someone else he was dating because I thought he was Daniel and I thought he was also dating Taylor.
Yeah.
So, I think it was episode 5 before I realized that Daniel was a completely separate human being that was not Alex.
He is a separate human being.
Right. Makes it a little tough.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, Daniel is different than Alex, okay? So
I've never seen them in a room together.
I'm going to
actually.
need them to
Maybe
be
I
in a
have.
room at the same time.
I'm trying to remember if we even seen a clip of them talking to each other, honestly.
So their relationship is fine. I don't know, boring. There's like nothing. They have a lot in common, I guess.
They have, but... and they gave us Easter eggs. We knew that somebody was supposedly like stalking some. So I'm like, is Daniel the stalker? Is Daniel the stalker? And they were doing these things where the editing was like, oh, these weird coincidences.
Right.
Both of our parents have the same name.
Can we talk
like we both like Christmas.
The weird coincidences are things like I like Taco Bell. These are not like. These aren't like
Taco Bell's not a smoking gun.
Coincidences or like I like Christmas. It's basically saying you like Disney World. Like it's not going to be everyone, but the idea that you find somebody that likes Taco Bell and Christmas is not out of the realm.
Those 2 things in particular.
Anyway, so the coincidences are not to me coincidences, but
they felt like normal. But I kept joking about him being a stalker.
And Taylor keeps talking about how uncomfortable they're making her. Like basically that he's so similar to her and they have so much in common and they're so on the same page that she's feeling uncomfortable about it.
These like random fate-like things that keep happening for us. Those things keep like alarming in my head.
And
she
then
says it multiple times.
She says at some point too on camera, she's like, oh, you don't follow me on Insta, do you? And he's like, no, I don't think so. And then he weirdly says, I can picture everyone that I'm following. I have a really weird memory when it comes to user handles and names, and I can guarantee that I'm not following you, which felt weird to me, honestly. I was like, who the fuck says that?
To me, it felt like he was just, maybe he doesn't use Instagram a lot.
Maybe he's got like 100, 200, like, because I
don't
not
follow many
I've got
people.
58 followers on my Insta account.
Right. I don't think it's that unusual that he would sit there and think like,
I can picture everybody.
Could I be following someone named Taylor in the Minneapolis area? I don't think so. So they pick each other. They don't even have number 2s. We know that they're going to pick each other.
It's all kind of like, they barely get shown. And then at the end, it's like this big blow up.
Right. Because so they meet each other. It seems to be going
normal.
Pretty normal. I mean,
it actually was kind of flat.
They're always awkward, though.
It was one of the flatter ones where it just seemed kind of like strange from both of them. It wasn't like a particular person, though.
Right. And then we get like a cut scene. And then she's in plain clothes.
Because she's talking to producers in her apartment.
Right, to talk to producers.
She says, I got a follow from somebody months ago, like 3-4 months ago, before the show started. And then they unfollowed me, or they unrequested. And I think that was you.
Yes.
Is what she says.
Right.
So this is complicated in a lot of ways.
Yes. Because she's not saying for sure, but she has a strong enough inclination that it was him, that it gives her a big enough pause that she feels like she has to talk about him.
And she says that even without being proof for friendship, you can see several things in my thing, the Taco Bell.
I have very specific things in my bio on my Instagram. It says I'm a registered nurse. It says that I love Taco Bell.
And then she felt like he was hitting those talking points in their
Right.
conversations. If I look back on it, I suspect that she brought it up and he just agreed, though.
Yes. Like the Taco Bell she brought
Maybe,
up.
and the Christmas thing too. I'm assuming if he's been taking pictures for several years, he has several years of pictures of evidence. So there's some stuff there where I'm like, that's not enough, because it is a quirky, interesting thing about him. And so she's like, we can't continue this because I think you're
She
stalking.
doesn't break up with him.
Oh, she doesn't break up with him?
No.
That's the cliffhanger. Whether
The
or not they're breaking
cliffhanger
up.
is her saying, "You followed me," and him being like,
I did
though?"
not. Yeah. So there's some. I have some feelings though. My one feeling is that if he's lying, he's an absolute creepy stalker, psycho. I don't trust that guy.
I don't think he's lying.
No, because if he's lying, that's bold-faced, weird shit. I don't think he is.
I don't think he is either.
Well, but then
He didn't seem caught. He just
doesn't-
seemed confused.
He felt confused. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure. Like it's like I don't know, dude. Like I don't even know what you're talking. He felt blind. He looked like he was blindsided.
I do not follow you on Instagram.
I mean, you followed me and then you unfollowed me.
I don't know why I would have followed you and unfollowed you.
But I also don't begrudge her.
I don't either. I think she's afraid. I think her
she's-
nerves are like
she got
getting
a
the
little
better of her.
paranoid.
Yeah.
And she's like, this could happen.
Yes.
And I'm uncomfortable continue. So if she breaks it off and she's uncomfortable because of those reasons, I don't think that's actually a wrong decision, but also doesn't mean that he's guilty of something. That's where I stand with it at the end.
I feel like the show is so stressful that I don't begrudge her being stressed. And honestly, because of how previous seasons have gone,
You can't trust those
you
motherfuckers.
can't.
You
And I think
cannot.
you can see like kind of her panic
Yes.
that like
She's
I
like,
got
"Oh,
engaged
shit, I'm
to
on the
someone and
show."
what happens if they're one of the psychos? Like what happens if they're one
Yeah.
of the like they're manipulating me and I don't realize it?
Fear. She
I
had
mean,
fear.
yeah, she really did look scared.
This is
Like,
honestly, if I can be, I said the show's cannibalizing itself. She's a perfect example of how the show's cannibalizing itself. It's
Yeah.
making the contestants fearful of being in situations that they've repeatedly put people into.
Right.
No fault of her own.
Yeah.
She's afraid because of what the show does to people.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm hoping that the next episode 7 we get, there's resolution. I hope they
It probably will be.
They continue on because they both seemed more.
I-
They do have some stuff in common that I think they could be a good couple.
Suspect they won't. I hope they don't, because of her. If she's able to suppress those fears and that anxiety, if they're able to like be like, oh no, there's no way, like let's move forward. I'm comfortable moving forward.
Yeah.
But as it is now, I expect they'll break up. If she could get
Unless
past
she
that,
sees how he reacts and she's like, oh man, did I like.
I know. She already sort of pulled
Did I
it back
just
a little bit,
stress?
because at the beginning of the conversation, she was like, "You're the one," and at the end, she's like, "Well, even if you aren't, I'm still afraid." That's kind of the way the conversation went.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that bring us to our conclusion?
our final topic
The Foursquare.
is the Foursquare.
Let's call it the clusterfuck.
The clusterfuck. None of whom are still on the show.
So we spent half of this 6-episode pod arc on
Yes.
these people.
Yes.
And none of them are continuing.
None of them are continuing. Right. So that's great. Love doing that. Love spending hours and hours and hours on drama that has no resolution. So the Foursquare is this. We have Madison,
Whose number 1 is Alex.
whose number 1 is Alex, and number 2 is Mason. And Mason is also dating Meg.
And I think he says that Madison is his number 2 and Meg is his number 1.
He was flip-flopping.
You think he was
He was
flip-flopping?
flip-flopping.
He
didn't
was
know.
flip-flopping.
He didn't know. He was flip-flopping the whole time. So
That's the way he presented it to another guy, but he would too. You wouldn't say your number 1 is coming at you or something. Yeah.
So
that's
Meg
true.
is fully into Mason.
Also the conversations, dude, like holy fuck, I didn't want to be there. I felt accosted. I did.
Meg is immediately brings up listening to Joe Rogan, Ancient Aliens, and like her absolute diehard love for conspiracy theories, which for me
Those are red
personally,
flags.
red flags.
Yeah.
So Mason and Meg have this energy that I don't know how to describe.
Without being disrespectful?
Right.
Okay.
They both
I don't know how to
seem-
describe it without being disrespectful, she says. Who's that from? Is that
It's
Akon?
Akon. Trying to find the words to describe this girl without being disrespectful.
Yeah, okay. All right.
But they do seem like a really good positive match
They
for
seem like
each
a
other.
match. They seem like they have a lot of bubbly, fun energy, curiosity.
Yes.
That's a
A
positive.
lot of openness with each other. They have a lot of fun on their dates together.
I also wanted to say I had initial reactions to her in that whole conversation where I did not like her for an episode or two. By the end of this, I actually really liked Meg's personality quite a bit.
I do too. I don't think I could handle being friends with someone like Meg, but I do see why people are drawn to her because she does bring a lot of fun and a lot of levity into like the conversations or even into like the girls' room. Like
how she handled other people's emotions too. And she wasn't like babying people, which I thought was she avoided the being mothering people, but she also was very sensitive to other people, not putting anything bad on them. She actually seems like a kind person.
She does. She does seem like a kind-hearted person. Right.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
So their relationship seems great. But then Mason is also dating Madison. And Madison is like maybe one of the most complicated people that I've ever seen on a reality TV show.
Early on, I thought she got casted because they thought she would bring drama, and I don't know that she should have been casted. I'm kind of frustrated with casting decisions to bring her on the show. Yeah. Given her background and the way she showed up.
Madison had a lot of self-described like childhood trauma, and she
brings it up a lot.
She does.
In the pods.
And it's complicated because
we gotta take a lunch break at a certain point. This is going on forever. I'm getting hungry over here. All right, but you're trying to find the words.
I'm trying to find the words.
You're trying to find the words.
I'm trying to find the words to like appropriately talk about this because I don't want to be disrespectful to Madison and everything that she's gone through.
Yeah,
right.
Because that's obviously a lot.
Yes, and clearly she's had to take care of herself in ways that like children shouldn't have to take care of themselves.
Taking care of her own parents in ways that children shouldn't have to.
Being responsible for her family unit in ways she shouldn't have had to.
Growing up way too early.
And it is completely understandable to me why that shifts the way that you would interact with the world and see relationships and be able to process that.
She is the epitome for me of hurt people.
Yeah.
That's what I saw by the end of this. At first I was like, oh wow, I really like her. By the end I was like,
oh no.
Oh wow.
So she describes, she and Alex have, like, that's her number one. I think that some of what she told him needed to be told, obviously, because he needed to know. And then there are other times where it feels like he's maybe not ready for, like, the level of information that she's telling him. And I don't feel like
And he expressed it. And he said, this makes me a little afraid. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem well with my attachment style.
Right.
You know?
She tells him that she has kind of this avoidant attachment style. Makes sense given everything that she experienced, that would be something she would struggle with. He expresses then that because of experiences he's had in his childhood with being bullied, with being cheated on by partners, that he has an anxious attachment style. And he is very, very concerned that with her saying she has an avoidant attachment style, him having an anxious one, that the two of those are not going to mix well. And I agree with him.
Yeah.
Very, like,
and he said it early on, but it kept going in circles because she pulled back then.
Yes.
She's like, no, I'm healed. That was the way it was.
Right.
I'm not that way anymore. I've changed. I'm not like that.
Right.
She was working overtime to tell him that the thing that she just said isn't actually how she is.
And you know what? I read something online, and I hadn't thought about it this way before, but it's almost like she took it as an insult where he was saying like, oh, your avoidant attachment style
that's not good
is
enough.
Bad.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But in fact,
it's not.
He was saying that he has a very similar issue, just in a different way.
In a way that it's going to be difficult to mesh.
They're both struggling, right? They're both struggling with healing from things that sometimes take a lifetime to process.
They're a lot younger than us. This is actually around the point in our lives where we started approaching and grasping some of those things in our like mid to late 20s and stuff. You're like, oh wow, I'm kind of a fucked up person. Why is that?
Madison seems very affected by the idea that like he is telling her that there's something wrong with her. Like that seems how she's taking it, when in actuality he's saying, you know, we're both working through things, and maybe the way that we work through those things is not conducive to a healthy relationship between the two of us. But
he's right.
And he's right. And like, I mean, I feel like he approached it the best way that he could, given the circumstance. And she seems hell-bent on convincing him otherwise.
Yes. You mentioned that every time it seemed like somebody's pulling away, she tried to reel back in.
Yes. It very much felt...
She wanted people that didn't want her or something.
So she has Mason and she has Alex. Alex is trying to pull back, and then she's desperately like conforming to what he needs in a partner and trying to convince him that that's where she's at in order to keep him there. And then she has Mason, who she's talking to. She knows Mason has a relationship with Meg. She knows that that's happening. She knows Mason is her number 2, solid number 2, and even mentions the fact that she knows that by continuing to date him, she's potentially causing hurt to other people in the house. And it feels pretty clear that she wants Alex and not Mason. But then
she refuses to break off Mason until
Yes.
it escalates.
Yes. Refuses to cut it off.
Yeah, she even said that, like, well, I've got 2 right now, so why am I gonna like it just. And the conversations they were having didn't feel like the type of depth that I'd be expecting from a serious connection.
It was very strange because to me, the clips we saw of her with Alex were things like, I'm not really comfortable being that, like sexual right away. I wouldn't be comfortable kissing on a first date. They had very deep conversations, and it was very much in that vein where, right, like, I need to protect myself, so I have to make sure I'm safe before, like, I'm even having any level of conversation around this. Then she would immediately go into a room with Mason and start having sexual conversation with him. And it felt very
like 2 different people,
strange.
right?
Yes, it felt like 2 totally different.
That was my hand.
No one believes you.
Literally. Oh, sorry.
Can't repeat it.
All right.
It feels like 2 different people. So it's so heavily feels it's jarring. Yeah, to watch it, the juxtaposition is so hard to watch and so strange.
And that's their entire relationship, is them joking about cream pies, basically, at the end.
Yeah.
To the point that he brings her a cream pie.
Well, and then every time she feels that, like, Mason and Meg are making progress in their relationship and it might be leading to Mason pulling away, she almost demands reassurance from him in ways that he is not comfortable providing.
But he does anyway.
And she, to me, it feels like she manipulated out of him the words that she wanted to hear, but she only wanted to hear them for validation and not because she actually ever wanted to be with him. Because then the minute that she hears it...
Yeah, because then he comes in and he says, I'm committed to you.
Right. And she keeps saying to him things like, I'm not telling you that you have to, but, like, this other person is affirming me and you're not affirming me. And, and then after he says, I'm committed to you, she basically is like, I'm not pushing you. I'm not pushing you into this.
This is your decision.
This is your choice. And then he repeats to her,
This is my choice. Yeah. And then he seems uncomfortable even through saying all that too. The whole conversation was awkward.
He does.
She can tell it's awkward. He can obviously tell it's awkward. Yeah,
and, like,
honestly, I don't even know what he feels at this point.
I don't know if he knows.
Because he's talking, we see him talking to Meg, and it's a totally different situation. Like, their vibe is different, but he's obviously, like, pretty strongly connected to both of them.
Yeah.
So who the fuck knows if he believes it or not at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Honestly. And Mason wasn't my favorite, but after watching all this, she seems happy when other people are hurting.
And by the time she breaks up with Mason, finally, right? So she chooses...
the next day.
She chooses Alex first. And that's like the afternoon of one day she chooses Alex.
Yes,
okay?
I forgot about this.
Alex goes back into the men's room. And he
seals his lips.
says... I have a girlfriend, but he doesn't say who it is because at this point, lots of people are dating different people and he's not going to break the news, right? That's not his news to break.
In that conversation, though, he finds out that Mason's the other guy.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, that sucks. Mason's, not like Mason, but like it is what it is.
Alex in a weird situation because what do you do? Because he knows she hasn't broken up with him yet.
So he's excited too because he's like, oh, I got this girlfriend.
And then the next morning, Madison meets with Mason, and her first comment is, well, you probably know already, which he does not.
He doesn't.
Right.
He's like, what are you talking?
He's like, I don't know.
This is the joke where this is where he brings her the cream pie.
Yes.
Because they were just joking about cream pies the day before. So he brings her the cream pie, and then he has his own massive plate of food, and she's like, oh, I thought you'd know already.
Right.
I don't know if you heard the news.
What's that?
I kind of assumed that you knew.
And he doesn't.
He's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Because from this vibe already, I'm like, does he actually think he's moving forward with her?
I couldn't tell.
I couldn't tell.
He hadn't broken it off with Meg at this point. He's still dating both of them.
I don't know how much of him it actually is a shyster because I don't know if we had an opportunity to see whether or not he was that shady.
I don't think we did. Because then he gets fully blindsided when she tells him, oh, well, like my connection. She doesn't say it's stronger. She says, I was able to get there faster with someone else. Right? So like basically you didn't act fast enough. This other person acted faster. And now like I'm picking this other person. And you can see that he's affected by it. And then you can kind of see him be like, he's like, yeah, when I told you I was committed to you the other day, it didn't feel quite right.
When I told you that I like was committing to you, when I said it, I don't know if it felt right.
And I really do believe all he's trying to do is just be like, you know what? Yeah, we probably should break up.
I felt it, but honestly,
like
it was quick, and this whole thing's messy. And well, you're right. Maybe you're right.
Maybe you're right.
It almost sounds like a maybe you're right kind of situation.
Exactly.
It didn't feel like a well, I didn't like you anyway.
No, it didn't.
We get that sometimes. It didn't necessarily feel that way.
It didn't feel that way to me at all either.
It felt like it was actually an honest reflection of what we physically saw with our own eyes the day before. I think we all saw that and was like, this isn't right. And then he comes back and he says, this isn't right.
Right.
Oh, and then she makes it her mission to make Meg break up with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt pretty heartless. And then when she left the pods and she went back to like the women's room, she was kind of like gleeful. And then people asked her how it was, and she was like, breaking up. What'd she say? Breaking up feels good or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, she knows he's upset. She knows they had this close relationship. She's doing the same thing he is. She has two connections.
Yeah.
He has two connections.
The conversation she's having between those two people, Alex is probably not pleased seeing the conversations if he thought that they were more exclusive or further along or something. And rewatching the show.
And if she's allowed to, and then she just picked kind of like minutes before he picked, but then she's almost like shaming him for taking too long to make a decision. Like it's his fault he's going to lose everyone because he took too long, but she took the same amount of time he took.
Yeah. You know, I tried to keep two good things going at once, and I don't know, I might have lost both of them.
I'm very confused about why then there's this double standard where they're approaching the show the same way, and yet for her, the way he's approaching it is wrong and inappropriate and insensitive.
She actually
the way she did was fine.
There's a point where she made somebody, and maybe it was him, she made him feel better, where he was like, yeah, you know, I kind of feel bad that I'm like talking to two separate people. She's like, it doesn't bother me. That was the conversation before she drove him into saying, but you've got to make a choice now, even though she wasn't. So she was saying both things out of both sides of her mouth.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
I
can't. That's why I'm like, I can't track half the shit that she's saying.
I can't either. And it was rough to watch. And then the way he was very emotionally affected, like when he went back to the boys' room, and confused, right? You can like see in his face.
Yeah, it was almost like, even when he picked up his plate of food, he was like,
what's happening here?
Fuck? And he goes back and he's like, what the fuck?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
With his plate of food.
And then Madison goes back to the girls' room, happy, gleeful,
laughing.
It sucks watching it because Meg is like, has done nothing.
Meg is just honestly being like, hey guys.
Meg's just existing. Right.
Like she's just
doing her thing.
She's like a rabbit in a field, you know, just like chewing on grass. Like, I'm not saying anything about intelligence. I'm saying like attitude. Like she's like a little bunny rabbit in a field.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yep. And then Madison, I do think Madison messed up then Mason and Meg's situation, because Mason and Meg meet one more time.
Actually. And
Mason is like, I am so sorry. He admits, I did commit to Madison. I didn't feel great about it in the moment.
I was confused.
Right? He says, I slept on it, and like I was even more confused. I was coming into today like kind of regretting that that's what I had done. And then, you know, we met and she broke up with me.
And here's the thing, too. I actually don't even know how much of that is true or what we'll ever know, because the way things panned out, his actual actions and like the whole like determine somebody's thoughts and through their behaviors. We can't do that with him. Yeah. That's actually why Meg ends up saying, I can't continue with you.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that reason. And I think that's also fair of Meg. And I thought she was very compassionate the way she did it.
I thought so too. Because she essentially is like, hey, don't feel bad. He like apologizes. She's like, don't apologize. Like, you have nothing to apologize for.
I'm sorry, Meg.
Do not be sorry. You truly did not do anything wrong. You were just following your heart. I just need something different.
She was very sweet to him.
was very
She was
sweet.
very kind.
And
And
she's like,
kind
you
to
know,
herself, too.
Right. She's like, you're a
Yeah.
good person. I'm a good person. We're
Yeah.
going to find people. She's like, but it's not like for me, I would always be wondering whether you would have picked me. And I can't.
And the same thing here. So here's the thing with like the Madison thing. Like maybe actually he is as bad as Madison is saying and thinking and acting. But we will never know. Why do Alex and Madison break up?
I don't even remember why they broke up. Why'd they break up?
Because she's like, it's just us now.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
She's like, oh yeah, and like he was crazy, and he's like, well, you know, I totally value the experience you had, but like, you know, I get where he's coming from, and she was livid.
It was further than that because she
Was it?
wanted to say he was a bad person. She wanted to say he had acted shitty towards her.
Okay.
And Alex
Like,
was like,
he's a-
I don't agree. He was upset.
Yeah.
And like, I saw him and I don't think he meant to be hurtful.
Yeah, I don't think he meant to
you.
manipulate you or
Right.
control you or anything like
Yeah,
that.
and she doesn't like that at all.
So I often fear men sticking up for other men because men can be really shitty, but actually in this case, I actually thought Alex was just approaching it with some humanity.
I think at the end of the day, Madison saying to Alex, hey, that's not what I need to hear right now. What I need is support from the fact that I just got out of this really uncomfortable conversation where I didn't feel like I was treated particularly well. But instead, she basically ices him out, stops talking to him.
And actually, he's the one that pulls the plug, isn't he?
Yes.
Because he's like,
I can't do this.
I can't do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was all those red flags before.
Absolutely.
That he felt uncomfortable continuing the relationship.
He
Yeah,
was
it's true.
basically like,
That's
this
true.
dynamic that we would have in our relationship scares me and is not, like, I don't know that we would be able to have a healthy relationship, a healthy communication in our relationship. And he's right. Because
Yeah,
they don't
he's
have it
right.
now. So why would they later? They're
Yeah.
not going to, you
Yeah.
know? So Madison leaves pretty upset because I think she thought she was having both people like
Fighting for her?
and then
Yeah.
she ended up having no one at
Yeah.
the end. What's interesting is I saw people basically saying like Madison is like the ultimate pick me because she chameleoned for whoever she was with and desperately wanted both of them to pick her.
There were several instances in the show where women were like, I need you to, or they refer to themselves as pick me's, basically.
I need you. I mean,
I
it
know.
is
They
the
said,
show.
you gotta pick me.
The show does
I
set
was
it up,
hoping
right?
would be here. I never thought I'd be a pick me. It's literally like pick me season.
But like hers, I
Yeah.
felt like was kind of the worst version of it. But then like I feel like people just like Gen Z particularly like throws pick me around
I
like
know,
this
it's an
insult.
Yeah.
But the reality is like sometimes I'm not saying this is what Madison's situation is. She would have to speak for herself, but like she literally told, I'm gonna get emotional. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
it's okay.
She literally told a story about like not being chosen by her own parents.
Which is
Like
that's where I'm like, you're never gonna fully escape
like
that.
yeah, that's like it's tragic. It's like absolutely
Yeah.
heartbreaking that
So
she
then
went
using
through that.
pick me as an insult for her just does
It
feel
just
kind of.
seems
And I have
fucking
so
rude,
many
man.
problems with the way she showed up. She's not showing up healthy in relationships. You know,
And
she's not showing up healthy
it
for
makes
herself.
sense
Honestly,
then why on a show like this she would desperately want
to be chosen.
someone to be chosen. I'm not trying to make this like I'm not having like a pity party for her at the
Yeah,
same time, right?
compassion
Like, but
for
yeah,
what she
compassion for what
experienced.
she experienced. It just like I hate seeing people online being
Pick me,
like,
pick
she's
me,
such a pick me. And I'm like,
pick
nah,
me.
man, you're looking at something that's so much more complicated than that. And even if that is
So what if she's a pick me?
so
Like,
fucking what,
yeah.
right? Exactly. Like
You go through that.
Right.
You go through that and not be a pick me. Honestly.
right. It sucked to watch her hurt people, and it sucked to watch her hurt.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, so complicated.
Is that the entire first 6
Can I
episodes?
just say something? How were the 6 episodes so boring, and then when we sit down and talk
So
about them, so
complex.
complicated?
Yeah.
So complicated.
Because they're casting for drama.
And also,
I want to stop watching at some point in my life. And I'm hoping 8 is the last American season we watch.
yeah, I'll probably watch it forever. Let's be honest.
Okay, all right.
I was like kind of reading some stuff online, and I think somebody put it in really great words on
Yeah.
like one of the Reddit boards. And they basically said that one of the reasons why they enjoy watching this show is to see people meet each other through the pods, not seeing each other, that they wouldn't have approached each other at a bar. They wouldn't have met each other otherwise. The show is the reason that brought them together, because maybe at
That's the
first
point.
glance they would have said, oh, like, that's not my typical type of person. But like they meet each other and we get to see them navigate the difficulties of bringing their lives together because they are different people. This season feels like a whole bunch of people that would have went to bars and met each other anyway. And that's a frustration
to the
that
point that one person is accusing another person of having already known who they are.
Right.
Like that's the point where we
level
are.
that we're looking at. Right. And so for me, like a lot of what I watch this show for is gone. So it gets hard to watch this because I can't freaking tell the difference between these people. What I watch this show for is not in this season because they cast so many people that were the same.
And they featured so many people.
Yes.
That's a big part of it.
They featured so many people that were the
it.
same. So if they're not casting people that are different enough, then I'm watching the same person go through the show. And like, yeah, there's individual drama with their relationships. There's just not enough difference in any of it. It comes off so bland to me from start to finish this season. Okay, well, we should wrap it up because
this has been 2 hours.
I don't know how long this is.
So that was a long ramble. Thank you for being here. I get if you had to watch in parts, that's cool. If you have comments about any of this laundry list of perspectives, love to hear your ideas.
Also, lots of difficult topics.
Yeah.
Obviously, do not expect that you're going to agree with us on every single one. Please express how you feel, agree or disagree in the comments. There's lots of nuance, so you can pick any number of like very deep and hard to talk about topics to talk about in the comments.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Then I got it knocked, and I started going,
Ridiculous.
All those tearjerkers.
Hey, we're gonna go on a cruise this summer. You should come with us.